part 65 of Don't Say Schwarzenegger. In this part, we're going to have a couple more witnesses taking the stand that we called. The first one is a doctor, a psychiatrist who treated me, and another one is both a witness and a victim. She was the female that was backhanded by one of the Driz twins because he didn't like the fact that she was checking my pulse to see if I was alive. Okay, so first up on the stand today is Dr. James Rosenberg. He's a psychiatrist and he works in neuropsychiatry. Little interesting tidbit about this guy. For 8 years, he was the script consultant for Law and Order SVU. Oh my God, Olivia Benson, oh my God. So that's pretty cool. He wasn't like a long-term psychiatrist that I was working with. I had another one that wasn't called to testify for some reason. But I did see him for like one session, maybe two, like long sessions where it was awful because before I went to go see him for him to diagnose me, whatever, 2 or 3 days before I went to see this Dr. Rosenberg, some really intense stuff had happened. For about 3 days in a row, there were 2 different men, one in his late 20s, kind of looked like Ray Nicholson, wasn't him, but looked like that, you know what I'm saying? Was waiting in my backyard for me. And then the other guy was an older gentleman, maybe like late 50s, and kind of dressed like, you know, I don't know how to say it. Like a guy that summers in Saint-Tropez. It was really weird. Like it was like not the appropriate dress for where I lived, which is a hiking area. But that man was waiting at the end of my driveway every single day, and would try to talk to me, would try to talk to my neighbors, would be asking about me. I was freaked out. So by the time I went to this Dr. Rosenberg, I was like, we need to keep the door open. I'm not sitting in a room alone with you. Like, I'm angry I have to be here. I'm angry that all of this is still happening, blah, blah, blah. Anyways, this doctor, he diagnosed me with PTSD. He said the PTSD, it substantially affected her function and major life activities, her ability to work, her ability to have a social life, to feel whole as a person, essentially every aspect of her life. And he said there was no significant validity issues or inconsistencies in my story. And then when he said this next part in court, I just broke down. I was like sitting, you know, and I just broke down because like I knew all of this, but it's like hard to hear a professional say it. But he said she in fact had one of the most serious cases of PTSD I would say I've seen in my career. Out of 2,000 people and 1,500 forensic cases. That's how bad it became. And during this stuff, we have Sean Driz chuckling and laughing and going like over in his seat and stuff. And now I'm just gonna read like a little quote from this doctor that he said on the stand. I call him my Law and Order doctor. He says that I have severe to extreme PTSD at this time. In her case, in the severe to extreme, comparable to the model of extreme PTSD and chronic PTSD is either schmexual assault or combat-related trauma, particularly with physical injury like loss of a leg, like veterans. That's the model of extreme PTSD. I would put her in the range of severe to extreme. Okay, and then I think for the last part of this part, I will now go over the witness statement from the woman that had dragged my body out of the melee and was checking my pulse. She wasn't present for this trial because she lived like far out of state, but we just read her deposition. And so in her deposition, she says she saw 2 to 3 men beating Anne up. She thought Anne was not alive and she had many facial injuries, me. She kneeled, checked my pulse and screamed, "Call 911." And then while she was doing that, one of the Driz twins came over and backhanded her across the face. Okay, so that's like the gist of her testimony. So she's done. And then the judge asks for financial docs again from the defendants, court-ordered financial docs. And Alberto says, I couldn't get into the office. Maurice Driz says, I have not. Sean Driz says, just so out of nowhere, but he mentioned that he takes photos of my Instagram. And then he says, oh yeah, and his printer ran out of color ink. And by the way, it's 3.5 years since the verdict, since the civil and punitive, and they still haven't handed over a lot of these documents. And there's no repercussions. There's no, like, it's, Yeah, so I just want you to understand that. And I know the reason why, and hopefully we'll get to that. Okay, we'll go to the next part.